What's up, TYT sports fans? It's me, Josh Gibbs, here with another hopefully fantastic WWE video for you. This is going to be a very special Memorial Day edition. I think you'll agree with the special Memorial Day topic that we have. Before we begin, I'd just like to give a big thank you to all of our veterans out there. If you know someone who has served or is currently serving, friends, brothers, sisters, mother, father, whatever, make sure you tell them thank you. So a lot of people have written comments or questions about the Iraqi flag, which is back there. That is the former flag of Iraq that I myself, who am a veteran, am still currently serving actually, I picked that up on my first of 2 tours to Iraq back in 2003. So in case you're wondering where that came from, that's where it was. It was a very nice gift that they allowed me to take out of the country. So I sincerely appreciate that. And so now you know. But anyway, we have chosen a very, very appropriate topic for this Memorial Day weekend. It is the top 10 most patriotic moments in WWE history. Now, in keeping with the tradition of some of my previous videos, I don't repeat the same wrestlers twice. I scoured the internet trying to make sure that this list was going to be unique. And the thing I noticed about other lists is that they all included multiple iterations of Hulk Hogan and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, people who are traditionally associated with patriotism. But I thought there's got to be a way we can make a list that has 10 all unique entries. So that's what we've got for you today. So let's dive right in. Number 10. Was a moment when Kane actually arm wrestled a major general in the Army. This was at the Tribute to the Troops back in 2010. Tribute to the Troops is a great program that was started in 2003, and they were at, I think it was Fort Hood is where they at, Fort Hood, Texas. A major general, it's a 2-star general, he comes out and challenges anyone to an arm wrestling competition, which seemed a little weird. Of course, none of the soldiers are going to arm wrestle a 2-star general. And all of a sudden, it's got to be Kane. Kane comes out, and you think, okay, how, I get it, he's a major general, but, Kane is hellfire and brimstone. How is that going to work? So they start arm wrestling, and it looks like it's going to be a draw, and all of a sudden, Edge comes out and spears Kane. And so by default, the general wins. Even though Edge is Canadian, we have a pretty good relationship with America's hat. So everybody cheered, the crowd goes crazy, and everybody had a really good time. It was a lot of fun to watch. Number 9 was when The Undertaker actually went patriotic. Now, fortunately, what's weird about this one is that this is long before the biker taker persona took over. If you're a fan of The Undertaker, as a lot of us are, surely you have to have had a little bit of residual hatred for this period of time when he rode in on the Harley and he had the bandana and he had the leather jacket, and it was just really, really weird. So, but this was still when he was the actual Undertaker. There was a group called the All-Americans, and they were going against the Foreign Fanatics. And one of the members of the All-Americans, Tatanka, had been injured, so the team was left missing a member. And so the big mystery going into the match was, well, who was going to be the new member of the American squad? And it turned out to be The Undertaker. And in one of the backstage promos, he said, and I quote, "The Foreign Fanatics, rest in peace." And it was a rare moment when The Undertaker had teamed up with something, especially something this super patriotic, in order to take out a team of foreign fanatics, so to speak. So number 8, involving another legend, was Sting, when the first time he donned the red, white, and blue. This was during the Great American Bash in 1990. He was challenging Ric Flair for the title. And so he comes out, he's got red, white, and blue face paint. He's got this awesome leather jacket with the stars and stripes painted on it. And what's significant about this was his first World Heavyweight Championship victory. Now, he would wear the red, white, and blue face paint a couple more times after this, but since this was the very first time he wore it, it was his very first title win against Flair, that it was a big deal. And so it sort of set the tone for what Stinger would become in the years that would eventually come by, and how beloved he was by so many people, not just for his patriotism, but for how colorful he was and how much he changed up the palette on his face paint. Number 7 was kind of an amusing one looking back on it. It was when Sergeant Slaughter just wanted his country back. Sergeant Slaughter's character went through a really interesting arc from being the prototypical drill instructor to all of a sudden turning his back on his country and actually teaming up with guys like Colonel Mustafa and sort of siding with them during the Cold War, which is very strange. So he suffered a couple of really humiliating defeats at WrestleMania 7 and then at the 1991 SummerSlam. And so he went into this self-imposed exile like the Incredible Hulk and went on this journey to find himself. And so after some time had gone by, they started doing these vignettes of him standing in front of like Mount Rushmore and stuff and turning around like someone had just polluted in front of an Indian, and he's crying and he's saying, "I want my country back." And it was all kind of campy and stuff like that. But it was a way for them to reintroduce this guy who had been really reviled for siding with the enemy. And so he just kept saying, "I want my country back." And that led him to coming in and actually saving Hacksaw Jim Duggan from the Nasty Boys. And that sort of brought him back into the good graces of the WWE or the WWF at the time, back into the good graces of everyone, and all was forgiven. Number 6 is something we've already mentioned, but it's the beginning of the Tribute to the Troops, which, like we had stated before, was started in 2003. This was just 2 years after the events of September 11th. JBL and Vince McMahon actually came up with this idea and wanted to do a USO-style show. And so they said, let's travel to Iraq and Afghanistan, or wherever we can go close enough to these places, and put on a show it doesn't involve storylines and stuff, but we'll bring the wrestlers out there. It'll be a really good morale booster for everybody. And it's proven a huge success, more specifically by the fact that it's still going on to this day. So Tribute to the Troops was a really awesome thing that I think showed a really deep commitment to our service members who are deployed around the world, who have to be away from their families for so long. So it's a really good thing that they do to break up the monotony that can come with those deployments. Number 5 is the We the People movement. Now you may think, well, that sounds kind of weird because the We the People movement started out as a heel faction. You're absolutely right, it did. But what was great about it was that it morphed into this super patriotic movement around 2014 when Rusev and Lana were going off on yet another anti-American rant. All of a sudden, Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter come out, and it's the perfect setup. It's the foreign guy telling America how terrible they are and how Russia is superior. And so even though Jack Swagger was a heel, it didn't matter. The We the People chant was deafening, and it was so spine-tingling to watch, and it was just a lot of fun to say. And still to this, in the rare times when Jack Swagger actually does wrestle, you can still hear the entire crowd get behind the We the People thing, which still resonates with people, and it's a lot of fun. Number 4 was when Lex Luger won the Stars and Stripes challenge on the deck of the USS Intrepid. This was in 1993 on the 4th of July. Yokozuna had actually wanted a body slam competition, and no one had been able to body slam him. And so it was just, all right, well, who's actually going to do it? And then this helicopter lands on the carrier. Lex Luger comes out and says, I'll do it. And he did it. And it was an incredible moment, especially for being on the 4th of July, on the deck of an aircraft carrier. And here you have two of the biggest stars of their day. And this was supposed to be the start of Lex Luger's big singles run. This was going to be the thing that catapulted him to stardom. And unfortunately, it just never materialized. He even came out, he had a American flag t-shirt. I mean, he had everything that you could want in an all-American, with the exception of Hulk Hogan. So it was kind of weird that they were multiplying this and trying to capitalize on the popularity of that kind of patriotism. Number 3 is a really, really special one that I think a lot of people will remember just because it only happened a couple of years ago. And it was when John Cena announced that Osama bin Laden had been killed. This was at Extreme Rules 2011 in Tampa, Florida. He had just finished a match against The Miz and John Morrison for the title. And so, as usually happens, especially in pay-per-views and live events, the wrestlers will sometimes stick around and talk to the crowd, even after the cameras have gone off air. So John Cena gets up on the announce table, and he's doing the kind of boilerplate thank yous, and everybody's just kind of saying, okay, where's this speech going? And then all of a sudden he announces that Osama bin Laden was caught and, quote, compromised to a permanent end. And this led to one of the loudest USA chants I've ever heard on television. If you get a chance, look it up on YouTube sometime and watch it. Guaranteed goosebumps. Guaranteed. Number 2, of course, we have no patriotic list would be complete without including Hulk Hogan. This is when Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik for his very first world title. Why is this significant? Not just because it's Hogan's first title, but also you have to remember the time that it took place. This was in the 1980s, specifically around 1984, when Americans hated the Iranians because of the Iranian hostage situation, which had gone on for 444 days, where 52 hostages were held. So there was this real hatred for the Iron Sheik. It went well beyond kayfabe, well beyond storyline. And so when he came back at Madison Square Garden in 1984, he beat the Iron Sheik, and that was his very first WWF World Championship. So you combine all of those elements of patriotism and super patriotism, rather, and then, of course, Hulk Hogan being the embodiment of all of that, and him beginning his epic run in the company. And it was a perfect storm for everything that they needed for that character. Everything worked for that time. Number one, I would find it hard to disagree with this, but you may think something different. The number one patriotic moment was the first show that the WWE put on post 9/11. They put it on 2 days after the events in New York City and in Pennsylvania. And here's why it's significant. It was, first of all, it was in Houston, Texas. So it's hard to find a more patriotic place in America than Texas. Second, all other live sporting events had postponed all their big activities, their large gatherings, for a week. WWE considered it, and they said, no, we can't do that. We need to show solidarity. We need to show that we're not afraid. And in a rare moment of absolute kayfabe breaking, no character, no pretense, no nothing, Vince McMahon was the first one who comes out. The entire roster was out on the stage, and he comes out and gives this epic speech about, hey, we will not be intimidated. We will not be afraid. We are here. We are the first large gathering of people after September 11th. And you know what? This is the way it should be. You know, we cannot give in to fear. And it was amazing. And it really filled people with hope. It's exactly what we needed, even so close to that tragedy. You have to remember there was still this mixture of fear and confusion and sadness and all of this stuff going on in that moment. And the WWE made the right decision to come out and say, you know what? The people need this. America needs this. And we really did. So that's my list. Do you agree with this list? Which one do you think should have been number one? Was there one that I left off? Put it in the comments. As you know, I respond to every comment, or at least I try to. And we can have a great open discussion about what moments you think should have been included on our top 10 list. So as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Chief Josiola. Thanks again to TYT Sports for having me. Once again, have a fantastic Memorial Day. Thank you so much to all the veterans, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.